Hey everybody, welcome to Williams Contracting YouTube. We're talking about budget versus price today. It's going to be an interesting discussion. We have Chris Williams, a custom home builder in Lacey, Washington, Olympia, Washington, kind of the tri-state or tri-city areas. Tri-state, yeah. Well, there's Tumwater, Olympia, and Lacey, right?
Yeah, I would say Thurston County
There you
for
go.
sure. You also incorporate Lewis County, Mason County, some of Pierce County. So South Puget Sound could be another way to put it.
Yeah, nobody knows what the Puget Sound is when I talk about it from out of staters. They just never know. But
So yeah, I mean Olympia is our home base. Thurston County is our primary area of operation, but you do expand out and work for. I will say I'll go where the right project is. I'll go. If anyone wants to build in Hawaii, let's make it.
Chris is open to travel. So I wanted to talk to you about the budget aspect for a couple different ranges of price.
Yeah.
First, I wanted to have you break down that whole budget versus price ordeal for people listening.
Yeah, so budget is a great term. I really like it. I use it a lot because budget just means we have so much money, so many resources to put toward this project. It's not an indication of the quality that you want to do. It's not an indication of your income and what you could afford to do. It's just an indication of this is what we want to spend to achieve this project. So sometimes the word price can be used. What is the cost? What is the price of this home? What is the cost of this, type of cabinet? And so when you have a budget, then you can shop the cost inside the budget. So if your whole budget for your house is $650,000, then we can break down the pricing for every individual, unit or piece or material or line item that goes into that house.
Yeah.
Um, so budget is not a scary word. It doesn't mean you don't have money, and it doesn't mean that you're being cheap. It just is the parameter for what is our budget to build this project.
Yes. So there's different types of people. Obviously, you can afford different ranges, but we should talk about
Different budgets.
yes, different budgets. There's custom home prices, and then there's private homes you can buy for like 300
Yeah, there's your spec houses. You've got older homes that are
Yes.
already built. There's brand new, homes that have been built, but they're not custom. There's, and spec is a huge range.
Right.
You've got developers that are building hundreds of houses in a development and selling them. And then you've got really the custom home builders like me. We're designing and building a home specifically for a client,
Right.
and everything's tailored to them.
The average home price around here, you can correct me if you think otherwise, but I think it's around 500,000 for
For purchasing the home.
yeah.
If someone's on the market working with a realtor,
Yeah.
yeah, it's right around there. Maybe 450, 500 would be the average, but that is not an indication of a custom built home.
Exactly. Yeah, so starting there, what would you say is the entry level based off of like the average home price for getting into a custom build? And I know there's many levels.
Yes. No, that's a good question. So, really, and this is where the definition of what a custom home is versus an existing as built home or purchasing even a new home in a subdivision in a development. Um, so, custom home is going to have a premium cost to it. You have to understand a custom home is a one off build. It can include a lot of things that are not, custom builds, right? We don't go and order a custom stove for our custom home. We're finding stove, a range and things like that. But a custom home means it's designed around you. The design can include the building shape itself. It can include the style. It can include the size. I mean, all of that's designed for a specific client or family. And so when you're building a custom home, there's a premium you pay as opposed to buying a spec home. So you might see spec houses listed for starting in the, 400s or the low fives or whatever. A custom home, the easiest way to start the price point, find your budget is square footage cost multiplied by the size of the finished living space. So we tell people that they should plan on their baseline cost for the home construction at $300 a square foot. So if you're looking for a 2,000 square foot house, custom home that is brand new house, built for you, 2,000 square feet, $300 a square foot, $600,000 plus the land itself and some various other things, but that's for the building. That's a custom home. You can do it for less than that. I tell people, I'll do it for less, but you might not like it, meaning you'll make decisions and then the price will probably increase, or you'll have to just sacrifice some things. I can build a 2,000 square foot home for 600,000. I can build a 2,000 square foot home for 800,000. I could build it for five if we really had to, screw it down, tighten it up.
And that margin, does that really come from the finishes or?
That comes from the finishes, the complexity of the home. I mean, there's so many factors: window count, door count, size of home. I mean, the square foot number also includes garage and porches. So you might have a 2,000 square foot home without a garage is going to cost less than a 2,000 square foot home with a garage.
What is the minimum people should have in their mind when they get into building a custom home or even getting ready to call someone like you?
Yeah.
Where should they be at in their financial journey?
That's a good question. It's hard to pinpoint sometimes because a custom home can also be built on a 10,000 square foot city lot. It could be built on 5 acres. So the land cost, the acquisition of the land, the amount of work that has to be done to the property for power, water, sewer, all of that can also be play into the your overall cost of your project. But if somebody was coming in and they wanted to build, I'll call a typical home 2,500 square feet, 3 bedroom, 2.5, 3 bath, somewhere in there, then they should come in assuming the entire project, land, permits, building costs, everything from zero to moving in. I think you should be prepared to spend 750,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
750 for everything from the land to the finish.
Right. Yeah. Now there's obviously a huge factor. I mean, it could be more. I mean, we're doing houses that are around that 2,500 square foot mark,
Mhm.
and the land was purchased with utilities ready to go, and the land was around $200 per lot, $200,000 per lot, and then the building contracts are in the 600, 650 range. So you're talking right there, $850,000.
Yes.
Plus some permitting and some other things. So you're really closer to nine
Yeah.
when it's all done. But these are really nice houses, but they're not on 10 acres. They're on a smaller lot, maybe 12,000, 15,000 square feet.
For people considering trying to beat the system, ideas come up immediately. Like, what if you build a tiny home and all that? Do builders even want to take on projects like that, like a smaller build like that?
Um, I think that there is a price point. Like when we look at projects, whether it's a new construction or remodel or a smaller building, we do have to consider what's the price tag of the whole project, right? And there is a cost when you're working with a custom home builder. That home builder has to consider how much is this client? Do I have to deal with them? How much interaction do I have? And is it worth it, right? And so if someone's coming in saying, I want to build a 800 square foot house, right? Maybe it's not a tiny, tiny home, but it's a smaller building, 800, 600 square foot house, like a guest house. There has to be a consideration of what is the cost of that building. That building per square foot is probably certainly going to cost more than $300 per square foot. And as a builder, you have to consider, you know, how much time am I going to spend here doing this? Now, the building itself will go quicker. It's a smaller building, but there's still all of the same decisions, or many of the same decisions are being made by the client, and we have to work those out with them. So there's still a lot of time involved. So our margins on that smaller building are not going to be nearly the same dollar amount as a typical home would be.
Yeah.
And that's a judgment call we make, and we talk to people about when we're initially, planning. People come to us and like, we're not doing a lot of just one-off bathroom remodels because they could be a beautiful bathroom they want to do and something, but it's just not worth our time. We're not the best fit for them
Yeah.
to come in and do that because of how we do things, the amount of work we go into the planning, the design, and all of that.
Yeah.
And we do bathroom remodels. We do come in and do people's master bath remodels and all that. But we really limit what we do in the location because we want to be able to execute them well. Um, so there's a challenge when you get into smaller spaces. Yeah, someone wants to beat the system. I want to build a tiny home. Then I started saying, well, you might want to find someone who's building tiny homes, and that's probably where you're going to be better off price point wise. Find a specialist in that particular area. Then I'm going to find a GC, a general contractor, or a home builder to come in and then build this as a one-off project. Because then we'll start evaluating, is it, the amount of effort that goes into building a building, whether it's this big or this big,
Yeah.
in terms of management is pretty similar.
Yeah. That's good advice, especially for millennials and younger people. Go with specialists and try to like, maintain like some sort of good plot of land first before you start working with people.
We have some people that we deal with, and they're looking for land, and they've got a 5-year, 10-year plan, and we're happy to help them evaluate it and make a decision. But that's a different approach than the person coming in saying, I want to find land, build a house, and move in. And
Yeah.
there is a premium you pay in a sense to get it done right away, get it done complete. Um, but you get it done right away, and it's done, and you move in, as opposed to someone who's going to kind of take their time and build out a piece of property.
Well, this is interesting. So you guys are essentially almost like full service. Like, could a client call you before they'd even thought about purchasing land?
Yeah.
Would that annoy you, or would it be like,
No, we really encourage people to do that. We have a lot of realtor contacts and people that we interact with, and we continually are saying, call us. We can help you evaluate property. We can help you decide, is it worth purchasing? What are the challenges going to be to build on this? Run through permitting. Last week, I had a client call, like, we're looking at this property. My realtor said to call you. I pulled it up online. It looked really good. Price was really good. So it's still a little bit like, why is the price good when everything looks so good on paper? And then we did a site visit like 2 days later and walked the property, beautiful piece of property. And then there was a pond kind of hidden in the bushes. And there is a pond bigger than this room, but it's a legitimate pond. And it's like, okay, that's going to be a problem. It's a wetland.
oh, okay, there we go. I was wondering what the problem was.
Yeah. So, and it was pretty much smack dab front and center of the property in terms of the layout of the property.
Yeah.
And so we talked about it for a little while on site, kind of looked at it, tried to figure out what was going on. I called the biologist that I have a relationship with, and pretty much immediately I said, "This is the property." He goes, "Oh yeah, I'm aware of that property, where that part of the county where it's at, the road it's on." And I told him the situation. He said, "Yeah, that's gonna be a really tough one to build on, to get approvals to build on with the county." And my advice then to the client was, I know you love this piece. It's a beautiful piece of property, but if you ever want to build a house, it's going to be a tremendous amount of work to get approvals. So it's probably better to move. And
What was the actual tax that you paying on top of just?
well, not tax. It,
Yeah.
it was the work that you would have to do to get approval to build.
Gotcha.
And because there's a wetland and the buffers that are in place for wetlands, and where, if it was off in the corner of the property, this is 5 acres, but it was right in the front. You had the road, you had the kind of the pond, you had the access road that was existing. And that pond, I mean, it just killed you because then you had slopes going down the rest of the property. And then all of a sudden, like, okay, that's why the price point is so good and it hasn't sold for a year. And then it was put back on the market, and this is just back on the market, but previously it had been on for a year and then taken off.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, that's why no one's bought it. And,
Yeah.
because it just doesn't work.
It makes sense. I've come to you with the idea of like, oh, I saw like a $10,000 plot of land.
Right.
I want to build a tiny home on it, something like that, and it could be affordable and it could beat the system. But people don't realize there's like wetlands, pocket gophers, utility access hookups.
Yeah.
And this.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have to be considered. And so when somebody really wants to find a piece of land and build a custom home, there is an emotional commitment to, like, I'm gonna do what I need to do to make this happen. And some projects, they flow really well. We just, get through permitting, get approvals, and you see the properties, you figure it out. Some of them, it's, here's the property, here's the challenges we anticipate are you willing to commit to working through those?
So we've talked about budget versus price and couple different aspects, and we put a definition on like who's ready for a custom home a little bit. I think it's like 750, you said
Yeah,
750,000.
I think there's two factors I would advise is number one, yes, the price point you can be at. Number two, is this a house you're actually building to live in, right? Is are you going to be in this house in 10 years? We've had a lot of people call like, I want to build a house, I want to live in it for 2 years, and I want to build another house, live in it for 2 years, and they want to play that real estate game, right? And sell the house after 2 years, don't pay the capital gains, that kind of stuff. And that's fantastic. The problem is if you hire someone like me to build that house, all of your profit that you would make from the sale, we take because we're managing the project. So you really have to, manage the build yourself if you want to play that game. But if it's, look, I want to live in a beautiful house, I want to have it built right. I'm planning on living here for, the foreseeable future, the next, 5, 10 years, then the cost to build that house, the energy, the time pays off because of the longer runway that you have.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, these are legacy houses when it comes down to these are forever homes for a lot of people. So
Yes, there's just I mean, your family changes obviously over time and you will modify the house too. I mean, no house is perfect for someone for a lifetime necessarily, but it's way more thoughtfully done and you're putting things in the house that are you.
so let's really get into the idea of who this really is a little bit further past budget and price. Who is this person kind of defined as like the perfect custom home buyer?
So not which type of person should build a custom home, but what should that person want?
Yeah, that was maybe the question. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So, there's definitely a few things. I mean, if you're building a custom home or you're going through the effort to design and build a custom home, then there's just the desire I want to make something the way I want it, right? I want to make something that fits my lifestyle, fits my family, fits my needs. It may be, and this comes across quite a bit as people say, I've owned this piece of property for 5 years, for 10 years. I'm ready to now build, right? Maybe someone who's moving toward retirement, maybe somebody like we've done with some military families where they've traveled and now they're finally kind of stationed and they've got the seniority to be able to know they're going to be stationed in this spot for a while and now they're ready to like settle down and really make something work. Anyone who is going to go through the effort to design and build a custom home, I think there's just number one is gone longevity. This is something I want and I could see myself living in for, at least 5 years, but like 10 years or beyond. And then secondly, it's gone, I want things a certain way to fit my lifestyle. And of course, location is huge, right? And so you go location first, rule of real estate, location, location, location. So it may be location, maybe the city or town you're living around, but it may be the particular piece of property. And so that's why we see a lot of homes that we're doing, they're on some acreage, a couple acres, 5 acres, sometimes 15, 20 acres. But that's that piece of property this person wants to live on and really spend their time on and build on and how you see yourself using the home, the property. And that's when it's worth going through the effort to build a custom home. So even with some younger people, younger, I'll say like under 40, under 35. So I'm still younger, I guess. Not under 35, but um, is they're making a pretty healthy investment somewhat early, not early in life, but somewhat early in life in their family's life, because they said, look, we found a spot we want to live. We found a community or an area of town that we want to be in for a long time. Now we're able to make this home, build this home, or even buy and remodel this home extensively. A lot of people are developing what I would call home base, right? So they're ready to travel more, maybe have family come in from out of town. So these houses that we're doing for that type of clientele is let's build a really nice house. Let's make there's features in that allow for guests to come in. There's features that allow for indoor outdoor living and kept entertaining. And their intention is I finally got to a point where I can really build something that I want I've lived in houses. We have one client, they've lived in Federal Way, and they've lived there for a long time. And Federal Way is built up around them, and they've got some acreage, and they're ready to move on to that acreage and kind of get out of the city. But when they first bought their house in Federal Way, in the probably before I was born, um, the Federal Way was not what it is today, and now they're ready to get and kind of retire. In a sense, they're still going to work to some extent. They said, but have that lifestyle of kind of in the country a little bit, zen room, some room to move around, and that's what they're ready for. So we kind of have two. You have your family kind of on the younger end. I'll say kids are still in school. Maybe they have some younger kids that are coming up. And so families happening, and then you have the ones that the family is grown now, and their actually eyes are toward family coming back and having a place to come back and get together.
Would you tell like your kids to get a spec home first, and when you're ready, get this process done of starting your custom home build, or would you rent?
That's a good question because I've, in my opinion, um, and I've actually never lived in a brand new house. The homes that I've owned, just a few, we've purchased, we've done remodeling on. You can't help it, contractor. And I dream about someday if I were to build a new home, but I don't know if I will. There is a challenge. We have a couple of times built simpler, but still custom homes for very young people. And because they found a piece of property and that was the piece they wanted to live on. And obviously, they're not as financially established as older clients would be, so their budget is much more limited. But they still want to build a house because there's no house there, and they want to build a house on that property. And so it's a different. It's still a custom home, but it's smaller square footages, simpler finishes. And so it really, I think, comes down to if this is where you want to live, and say the piece of property comes up that you can buy, absolutely, um, buy it. And you might then hold it for a couple of years and rent, and kind of start to grow your family and figure out your lifestyle a little more. Um, there's no right or wrong in that regard. But in a perfect scenario, in my opinion, it is yes. Let's say you're coming up, you're married, start having kids. Maybe you take a couple of years, you rent, maybe you buy a house, you're living in that house, kind of figuring out how you want, and then you build something, and you really kind of save up for it. And that's with when we get into our kind of a younger family clientele. Um, we do have, like I said, the ones that are just building right off the bat, but that's because they found the perfect piece and they're ready to go. Um, but we found the ones that kind of are a few years into, they're really established professionally. They're making a good income. They kind of know what they're doing. They know where they want to live. And then we end up building them a little bit bigger house. So we might be 3,000, 3,500 square foot home. And they see their family growing into that. And they go, this is a house we could really grow into. And say they've got kids who are 5 or 2 or brand new, that okay, 15, 20 years from now our kids will grow up in this house. That's going to work out really well.
Have you seen people leverage their equity from their like spec home that they're living in currently to build that custom home? I know there's like a HELOC.
Yeah, there's definitely ways where you have your current home that you own.
Yeah.
Right, and let's say you are looking to build a brand new house. So you have your current home you own, you have equity in that. Maybe you bought it, you've lived in it for 5 or 6 years, the value's gone up, you paid down the mortgage, you're sitting on a couple 100,000 in equity in that home. And so with different banks will work it a little differently, but that equity that you have, right? Because once you sell that home, you would have it basically cash. So you can move that equity basically toward building your new home. There's a couple ways to do it. Some people will do cash out and then do it. That's definitely can be done. Might be a little bit easier that way because then you just have the money and you buy the property outright. Let's say you're buying the property, but also the same thing goes if you have already owned the property and you own the property, it's paid for outright. The value of that property is part of the equity of the build, because the bank will evaluate the new building on the property as a whole. What's it worth? And then do that, the calculation with what it costs to build. So then you have your value versus your debt on that, and then it can be worked out. So living in a home for a few years and building equity with an eye toward building a new home is another way that you're not losing money by paying down your current mortgage because it can be convertible toward equity.
Have you had people who have their current spec house that they just want to tear it all down and build all custom?
That's pretty rare. That's pretty rare. That's more where people are looking at properties that have older homes. We do have where you completely remodel a house, but it's not the case where we're the multi millionaires that buy a $3 million house and tear it down and build a $20 million house.
Yeah,
We're not.
yeah,
We're not doing that around Olympia so much.
that's fair.
Um,
That's
but I would, you know, there's kind of a couple paths to go to getting a beautiful home. Say at the end of the day is the property, build a brand new home, or you buy an existing home and you end up remodeling it, whether that's over time or whether that's let's get it remodeled and move in. So we've gone both ways with that.
and there's no like perfect path, right?
No, there's not. And sometimes it's easier financially to buy an existing home just because it's a quicker transaction, it's a cleaner transaction, and if you own one home and you sell that and move into a new home, I mean you got to have somewhere to live. I mean the ideal standpoint for a new home is somebody owns a house, they build their new house, they move into their new house, they sell their old house. That's like the perfect scenario, and we have a lot of clients who've done that, and it works out quite well.
Building a new home is, I guess, just apparently step by step, no matter what, not like buying a spec home. So just keep that into account. Working with someone like Chris really pays off in the end because you're able to have a full service outlook from when you buy the land, when you want to, start looking into finishing and using the designers on the team. And it's really cool that you offer that aspect of a full service white glove kind of experience with
Yeah.
people.
So yeah, and when it comes to just kind of the initial, everyone wants to know what does it cost, what can I do, right? It's going to take, and having that initial picture of, I tell people if you had this perfect piece of land and the house was sitting there and you had to buy it just like you were buying another house, what is the value of that to you, right? And that's a way to kind of summarize, trying to compare apples to apples. If I buy a house that's existing and remodel it, if I buy land and build, at the end of the day, what does it mean time wise? What does it mean cost wise? What mean level of finishes? Because building a new house from scratch, you've got a wide open book about what you can do. Remodeling, you've got more restrictions, so there's advantages to both. It really just depends on what somebody's lifestyle allows for and what they're able to do.
Yeah, all these projects are comprised of like a mile long pros and cons list, right? Like, so yeah, using a professional, it makes sense. So, thank you guys for checking this out. This has been price versus budget with Chris Williams. If you guys wanted to check out the toolkit we have down below, you might notice in the description. Chris, you want to tell them what that's about?
Yeah, so the toolkit is really an example. It's directly from one of our projects that shows you the way that our plan documents, so the construction documents, the finished documents, what it looks like in terms of detail. We've got the cost breakdown sheet, so you see all the different categories and it shows where the money goes to build the house. We've got an example of our spec books and just all the real fine details about all the selections, and then the contract as well for the all the nerds out there that want to really read something, get into the contract. And but it's an example of how we do things, but also if you're looking to build or remodel, what you should expect from a builder in terms of the level of communication and the clarity. So we're handing that out for free. We want people to kind of see a really good example of what a house build, what a plan and a build looks like. And then, of course, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer. I talk to people once in a while from different parts of the country who, kind of find us and have questions. And you may not be moving into this area, but we can answer that. But really, our focus is on this kind of Western Washington, South Puget Sound area.
Thurston County.
Yep, Thurston County.
Yeah, you can reach out to Chris at wcontracting.com. Thank you guys so much for checking it out. Like and subscribe. We're going to be coming back with plenty more for you.
Thank you.
Thanks.